Avatar, The Way of Water. Initial reviews were kind of soft panning this movie, praising action but describing dialogue as cringy. One channel said people were even giggling through some parts of the movie, and a publicist came in to ask them to stop. Myself, I honestly don't know what movie they were watching. This was great. Maybe I'm not as sophisticated as the career movie reviewers, as I didn't find anything stiff or cringy, and if that makes me uncultured, well then, good. I want to be uncultured. I enjoyed enjoying this. And frankly, if the final scene doesn't at least tempt your tear ducts, well, then I just can't help you. Though, I will add, even if I was bored, even if I hated every character on screen, I feel the movie would still rise above it. At its heart, here we're what you might call being lost in the museum. We're walking through the aquarium. We are not movie-going here, but adventurers exploring the best park in the world. On my review of the original Avatar, I referred to the idea that it was a playground movie, a movie that isn't so much about delivering a plot as it was creating a landscape to spend time in. Perhaps another example I might say is Dr. Zhivago or Lawrence of Arabia, the wonder of entering the ice-frozen country house in Zhivago or crossing the Nafud Desert in Arabia. How we got there is almost unimportant. The blood of the movie is in being there, in the moment, and just enjoying that moment, like a kid in a playground. And this is just that. It often reminded me of other movies. There's a whale jump that felt right out of Life of Pi, only on steroids. Unfortunately, when we see something big like a whale, it's often a bit flat, but oh well. There is a fish chase that reminded me of the introduction of the shark in Finding Nemo, with the character having to crawl into little crooks and crannies to escape that just gave this terrific kind of a combination of a cage and being in a cave moment that 3D really helps emphasize the squeeze there. Another great moment. And of course, there is a prolonged sinking boat that frankly could have come out of Titanic. And even a bit of the soundtrack I found to be a bit reminiscent of My Heart Will Go On. Now, like the first movie, the opening shots were pure flat, and for a moment I thought, oh, is this going to be sacrificing stereo for realism throughout the whole thing? But that was just a moment. Once we see something at ground level, we are introduced to such an amazingly rich stereo view of this world, and it never really lets up. Now, I would prefer the large establishing shots exaggerate the stereo, but I know it is a frequent choice of filmmakers to not do that, as people don't naturally see big things in stereo. But I found in the theater with the big screen, cutting from a stereo-rich moment to a mostly flat big shot, like that whale jumping out of the water, it didn't feel so much real as it did just jarring, and my eyes were accustomed to seeing depth. Then suddenly there's none, and then it's back again to show the reaction shots of the people on the ground. I found that kind of change flowed better at home on a smaller screen. On the flip side, I guess it did give my eyes a chance to reset, so I could continue to be conscious of the depth throughout the movie, rather than just become accustomed to it all. Now, with the possible exception of True Lies, James Cameron always seems to feature robots in his movie. The idea of evolved people seemingly ever present, man versus nature, and be it the Abyss, Aliens, Terminator, it's always nature that seems to have the edge. True strength does not require intelligence. The bulky equipment of mankind is not a symbol of strength, but of immeasurable weakness. And the machines struggle, they toil, they break, but the nature of things just doesn't work as hard. The alien quietly reproduces, the ocean quietly takes the ship down. Skynet cannot send enough robots back to kill every future uprising. Even in Titanic, the machines scrounge into the past, and at the end, the point of it all, the diamond, is thrown back into the ocean, symbolizing a surrender to the way things are, rather than a drive to conform them to our will. This movie spends most of its time in nature and water. It's a true baptism experience. There's very little machinery overall, and the water looks, well, real. It looks and feels indistinguishable from 3D documentary footage. Dust is great for gluing any stereo picture together, but it's often so nice that it steals attention, like a snow globe might. Here, the bits of water dust sprinkled still glue it together, but never enough to draw attention to itself. It's not layered. It rather interacts with the light beams and, well, again, just looks real. And the light, perhaps the real star of this movie. You can see different currents in the water. You can see the behavior of light change as it makes its way through different substances in the murky ocean. But again, never to the point that it's a spectacle. It just looks real. There's a character who is discovering a special relationship with the planet, something of a Jedi in training, I guess. Overall, I felt the idea of communing with the spirit of nature, or I guess Gaia, was certainly present, but surprisingly not the focus of the movie. The idea of interconnectedness was here much more powerful and frankly made more sense in the context of family, which this movie is truly about. And the way of water turns out to be not something that they seek for enlightenment. They don't seek it for power. They need it, frankly, to be of service, to survive nature. They need it to be a family. And if you learn the way and walk within it, you can expect to keep the family strong and get the best out of the world. If you disregard the way of things and walk according to your own whims, well, you'll have trouble, not from the wrath of any god, but the consequence of pride and ignorance.